Hi my loves, welcome back or welcome to my channel. Welcome if you guys are new. As of today, June 18th, I have read 50 books so far this year. And considering June is obviously the middle of the year, I thought this would be a perfect time to do a mid-year wrap-up. My favorite way, and I honestly think most efficient way to do these wrap-ups, is to rank every single book I've read so far this year from worst to best. This is really fun for me because we're going to be talking about my favorite books in depth of the years that I've read so far, like my top 10, the ones that I absolutely recommend with everything inside me, like please read these books. And then you also get to get my thoughts on the ones that I just didn't really like as much, that kind of didn't hit for me, kind of making it my mission to read all the books that are really popular at the moment, as well as some lesser known books and all the new releases that have come out this year. Those have kind of been my missions. I've been trying to branch out my reading a little bit. So I figured this would be the video to give you all the recs, to give you everything. So sit down, grab a little snack, grab a drink. I have my reading diary with me right here. As much as I would love to be an aesthetic reading diary kind of girly, I don't have that patience. I wish I did, but I really don't. So I basically just use this to list every single book I read in the month, my TBR for the month. My goal for the year is 100, so fingers crossed we can make it to 100 by the end of the year. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. I have ranked every single book I have read. We're going to start from worst because we can just kind of get them out of the way. Every book that I have physically, I'll be getting off my shelf to talk about, and if not, I'll just put it on the screen. I will say all of these books that are last, I didn't necessarily hate. None of these books are below a 2.5 star rating. I don't usually give books a lower rating than that, but it is pretty amazing that all of them have been really, really good so far. So in saying that these are my worst books of the year so far, it just means I didn't enjoy them as much. All that being said, the book that is at number 50 is All I Ever Wanted to Be Was Hot. Now this is a autobiography, I would say, and it is by an Australian, I think she's an Australian comedian. This is actually a book club pick for me. So it's not my usual kind of read, although I do love reading biographies and autobiographies. They're my kind of preferred non-fiction. And I actually had really, really high hopes for this because on the back it said it talked a lot about body dysmorphia, growing up in this world, how all the kind of social media and Victoria's Secret and everything like that has really affected young women, young men, just growing up in this world and your idea of self-image and everything like that. So that in itself, I was really intrigued by. I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to really enjoy this book. The lady who wrote this, I think her name was Lucinda, has gone through so much, and it was really interesting to see. However, I just didn't love how this was presented. To me, she would go into really a lot of detail on random things and kind of only just briefly touch on the things that I really wanted more information on and more insight into. And by the end of the book, I just felt like we didn't have a great conclusion. We didn't have a great concluding message to finish the book off. I kind of left it feeling worse about myself than I did when I initially read it. And I feel like that's not the aim for these kind of books. So yeah, for that reason, I rated it a 2.5. I just didn't love it. There were moments that really did touch on some really prevalent topics that I think are really important to be discussed in society. There was just so much more opportunity for so much more depth. For me, it wasn't the best read. I don't know if you might have a different experience. Maybe you might connect to it a bit differently than I did. Moving on to number 49, we have A Familiar Stranger. This is a short thriller. And look, I always pick up thrillers when I just need something quick and easy because I love a good thriller. They always get me out of a book slump, especially Freya McFadden. She's my go-to. I have read a few books by this author before, and so I was like, you know what? I feel like I might like this one. This was not a bad thriller in any case. I just happened to guess all of the plot twists, and it dealt a lot with topics that I just felt uncomfortable reading about. I didn't really want to be reading about the kind of topics that I was, and the characters were really, really bugging me. You know, sometimes in thrillers where the characters just feel really stupid, honestly, that's what this felt like. I just felt like I was dealing with some really stupid characters, and I was like, you know what, don't really feel like reading this. I got through it, but as I said, I did guess most of the plot twists, and so it just wasn't a great thriller for me. So this was also a 2.5. I was kind of hoping for a little bit more because some of this author's works I've read in the past, as I said, and I love them. Like Every Last Secret by them is amazing. I loved that book. Number 48, I did not expect this one to be this low, but when I was thinking about it and when I went through all my ratings, this was rated very low, and this was also rated a 2.75, and this is The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy. Now this isn't actually out to the public yet. I do believe it gets published this month or maybe July, but this was one of my most anticipated reads because it is based off a Draco and Hermione fan fiction, and I just had such high hopes for all of these new fan fictions getting published and getting their own story, getting new characters, everything like that. I was so excited to read this one. I'd heard incredible things about it. I just heard that it was really, really funny. And look, I do think you could like it. So don't just base everything off my recommendation. I do think this is one of those books that you may absolutely love. For me, it was a miss. I just didn't love the humor. I thought it was really, really crude, and I didn't love our characters. Number one, I did not see Draco and Hermione in them at all. And I know that that's not the main aim now that we, you know, they are different characters technically now because it is a traditionally published book. We've changed the names and everything, but I just didn't get the sense of them. I was really, especially Hermione, I was really hoping to get some Hermione, but we just didn't. So yeah, I was kind of hoping for a little bit more there, but I also just felt really uncomfortable reading about it. As I said, the humor was really, really crude and just not my kind of humor, not the humor that I find funny. Felt really bad reading this one. And as I said, definitely still go into it if you're curious about it. Number 48 is Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney. This was my first year of getting into Alice Feeney, and I will say for the most part, I have loved her books. As I said, these books aren't bad books. They're just on like the lower side because I have had such an incredible reading year this year. I rated this a 3 stars. Like, we're already up to the 3-star mark. To be fair, I'm not really a harsh rater. In saying that, I do usually pick and choose my books pretty wisely. Like, I'm not going to pick up something that I'm really not going to enjoy. I just wasn't as hooked as I could have been in this book. I have loved some of her other books and I kind of was expecting, I think my expectations were a little too high going into this. I haven't been explaining the books. I'm so sorry. I'll try and start now. From memory, we are following a lady who is in a coma in a hospital and she can't quite remember how she got there. She can still hear everything, but she can't physically say anything, and she's trying to remember the events, and we as the reader get to go back in time and see the events that led her to this situation. Interesting premise, and do recommend if you need a quick, easy thriller, but yeah, I didn't love it as much as I would have hoped. Number 46 is God of the Woods. This I also rated 3 stars. I think the problem about this book was that I went in with very different expectations as to what this book was. I had been seeing so many people I usually have really similar book taste to rating this a 5 stars, and so I was like, oh, this is really exciting. To be honest, I was very bored throughout this book. It is a historical crime fiction, I would say, but it's not a mystery. It's not a thriller by any sense, and I thought it was going to be some like really high stakes thriller. As I said, very much a historical crime kind of fiction book. Very interesting, and we had really interesting characters. Basically, we are set at a summer camp in the 1970s, and one of the girls there goes missing. We also kind of have jumps back to the past to another case that was very similar in the similar area, dealing with similar characters. So we do have really interesting character dynamics. You as the reader are kind of trying to put together this crime as you read, and that was really interesting, but it was a very long book as well. I think it was on the 500 to 600 pages mark. I'd seen physical copies and I thought it was a 300-page book, but yeah, it just kind of really dragged on for me, and for that reason I gave it a 3 stars. I do feel like I'm the minority in that sense. I think a lot of people enjoyed this a lot more than me, but that was my experience reading it. Number 45 is The Crash by Freya McFadden. I read this in a day, so easy to say that this was very, very addictive. This was also 3 stars for me. I feel like 3 stars was pretty standard for me. It just means it's like a good book. I wouldn't recommend it over a lot of other books, but it's an easy, fun kind of read. As I said, I feel like Freya McFadden never really fails me. I think I've read one book by hers that I didn't really like, but other than this was just a good book. Like, it was a good thriller. In this book, we are following our protagonist who gets into a car crash, believe it or not, and somebody on the side of the road helps her into their cabin that's kind of in the middle of nowhere. She is severely hurt and trying to get out of the cabin, but she can't make it to her nearest hospital for various reasons that you will see if you read it. As I said, really enjoyed it. 3-star read for me, but I do think there are better Freya McFadden books out there, which I will talk about because I have been reading a few of her books this year. Actually, the next one is a Freya McFadden book. This is kind of it's actually a novella, I think. I think it's under 100 pages, and this is Death Row. The fact that this is under 100 pages and it still got me with the plot twists, amazing. I feel like this is pretty self-explanatory, but in Death Row, we are following our main protagonist who is about to be put to death because she is in prison, but she is stating that she was falsely accused and she should not be here. She is not guilty for the crime she committed. In those 100 pages, somehow we find out if she was guilty or not. For a thriller novella, very good. This was a 3 stars for me as well. Next is Skyshade by Alex Astor. This is the 3rd book in the Lightluck saga. When this book came out, we all thought it was going to be a trilogy, but she has recently announced more books in this saga, which is quite exciting, I think. Will I continue it? I'm not sure. I think I have very mixed feelings towards this series. I actually really enjoyed Lightluck. This was me finishing the series this year. I had read the first 2 last year and I wanted to finish it. I actually quite enjoyed Lightluck. It was a really fun, easy read for me. It was a fun, fantastical setting. It felt quite different for a fantasy book. However, Nightbane kind of lost me a little bit, and so did this one. I am just not a fan of love triangles. See, here's the thing. I don't mind love triangles when it's over pretty quickly and it kind of makes sense as the person she's meant to be with, and that person makes the right choice. Like they make the right choice. But when they keep going back and forth, that's when it starts to really, really bug me. And that was the case for this one. I actually really like the fantasy world. This was a 3.25 rating for me. I actually quite like Alex Astor's writing. I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion, but it's very easy to read, a really good YA series. But this book just didn't stand out to me. Lightlark is definitely my favorite in the series so far. Number 42 is His and Hers by Alice Feeney. I told you I went on a little Alice Feeney journey this year. I really liked this. A 3.25 again. Wasn't quite as addictive as I was hoping, but it was a really good thriller. I do believe this is getting adapted into a TV show as well, which I'm really interested to see. I do think Alice Feeney is quickly becoming one of my go-to thriller authors. I only had Freida McFadden before, and now I've read all of her books that are out, so I was like, I need somebody else. And Alice Feeney really just fills those shoes. She writes such easy, addictive reads, and you really like are guessing until the end. Some of the characters were really interesting. I feel like all her characters are usually very flawed, and that always makes them a little bit more curious for the reader. I'm always kind of questioning whether I can trust them or not. And yeah, this was just a good, fun little thriller. Okay, these next two books, if you have been on my channel for a while, you will know that I have been in my rereading era, and I've been rereading some childhood favorites, and that means A Series of Unfortunate Events. So I just kind of put these here because like they're rereads for me. I love them to bits. In my heart, they're 5-star reads. In my brain, they're probably 3.5-star reads. I don't know. So, you know, it's a children's series. It's hard to rate. But the 6th and 7th book in A Series of Unfortunate Events, I've still got the bookmark in this one. These are really fun. These are some of my favorite stories, especially number 6. I love Violet, Klaus and Sunny. Just obsessed with these series. Okay, we're down to the 30s now. Number 39 is Holding the Reins by Paisley Hope. This is a cowboy romance. If you like Elsie Silver, you'll really like these. The reason I didn't put this too high is just because it was very, very spicy. I'm not someone who likes a ton of spice in my romance books. I much prefer the little interactions, like the little touching of hands, and then like leading up to the end, if that makes sense. I'm not a big fan of spice within the first like 20 to 30% of the book, if that makes sense. And this very much was. I did go in knowing that it was a spicy book though, but I just really wanted a quick, easy romance read, and that's what this was. We are following Cece, who has gone back to her country hometown after a very messy divorce with her very wealthy husband, and she reunites with her kind of high school crush, who I believe is her brother's best friend. He, who is a retired a retired hockey star, now lives back in this small town and basically owns just a bunch of branches of like shops and bars and stuff in the town, and he is very wealthy. There's a lot of tropes going on. Forced proximity, enemies to lovers. No, I would say Grumpy Sunshine more than enemies to lovers. Do recommend if you need a quick, fun cowboy kind of romance. Number 38 is The Tenant by Freida McFadden. This is one of her newest releases as well. This only released the last few months, like in April or something. She writes insanely fast. It's actually crazy. I was addicted from page 1 as per usual for Freida McFadden books, as I feel like it's pretty obvious. I like thrillers, but I usually read them as a brain break. I don't usually read them because I think they're going to be a 5-star read, if that makes sense. So a lot of the thrillers I read this year are kind of rated on the lower side of things. This was a 3.25, I think. We are following our protagonist Blake, who has recently been fired for apparently leaking information in his branch, in his business company that he was working in, which he does not think is true. And his life just kind of starts falling apart. Him and his fiance are trying to afford their mortgage, and they're just not, so they decide to take a tenant in. The tenant can pay them rent, help kind of build their mortgage, give them a little bit more financial stability. The plot twist in this really got me. It really got me. I did not see it coming. Some of them I did. There were a few minor ones, but like the major one, because of course a Freida McFadden book isn't just going to have one plot twist. And yeah, really enjoyed it. Really easy read. At 37, we have The Inmate by Freida McFadden. This was a 3.5 for me. Definitely one of my more favorite Freida McFadden books I've read. This was fascinating. We are following I think from memory, I read this at the very beginning of the year, but she is a nurse in a prison and she has to deal with inmates all the time. And that concept in itself was so eerie and creepy, but I loved it. I could not stop thinking about it. Every time I put the book down, I needed to pick it up and see what happened. You're going to read a Freida McFadden book soon. Highly recommend that one. Ward D is also really good. That's about a psychiatric ward. She just always has really interesting settings that you don't picture, and they're so creepy. And I think that was my highest rated book by her that I've read this year. Number 36 is Reckless by Lauren Roberts. I've been putting Reckless off for such a long time, but I finally read it. Powerful was actually my favorite. I loved Powerful, the novella. I gave that like a 4.75 rating or something. I loved it. A novella has never made me feel so much. So Reckless, I just heard so many different things going into it. I will say, I think I'm one of those people, like I gave it a 3.5. I was entertained the entire time. I was quite addicted. I really liked the development of characters in this book, but the back and forth started annoying me a little bit. I was hoping for a little bit more plot and a little bit more politics and like, yeah, just depth to our plot. But I feel like we were mainly focused on the love story. And whilst I did really enjoy the love story, I just wanted a little bit more oomph to the story when we're talking about a fantasy book. But that was kind of my only complaint. It is a really easy series to read and I do recommend it. We are already getting close to our 4-star ratings. This is what I mean. Like, I had a really, really good reading year so far. Anyway, the next book is Cruel is the Light by Sophie Clark. I was really excited about this one because it is a fantasy romance between demons and exorcists and we're set in Rome. Very Cassandra Clare coded. So for all my Cassandra Clare girlies, highly recommend. This is a YA fantasy as well. I really love the setting for it. Very dark, moody, atmospheric. However, I feel like I liked the first half of this book a lot more than the second half. I gave this a 3.75 in the end. I do recommend it. I think it's a really fun fantasy read. It's not my favorite, but I do really appreciate how unique and refreshing it feels. Close proximity, a little bit of enemies to lovers, I would say. I do think it definitely deserves a little bit more hype. I think people should be reading it. It's definitely better than a lot of the other fantasy books I see recommended. Next we have Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. This is Ali Hazelwood's, actually it's not her newest release anymore, but she released this at the beginning of the year. This is an ARC copy I was lucky enough to receive, so I got to read it a little bit early in January. And look, I'm an Ali Hazelwood lover. I always will enjoy her books. I'll always find them really fun. I thought this was a really fun read. I know it copped a lot of hate for some reason. I gave this one a 4 stars. I think at the moment Bride is still my favorite. I really liked the swimming setting of it. Basically, our main protagonist, Scarlett, is a diver, I think. Yep, she's a diver. And then Lucas is just a swim captain, like he's a swimmer. I feel like Ali Hazelwood always chooses really fun, interesting settings. It was a little bit spicy for my taste, and I think that was the main reason it copped a lot of criticism because they marketed it as a very, very spicy, interesting kind of book. But I enjoyed it, and if you enjoyed it, you don't have to let everyone else's opinion of it make you hate it because, yeah, I enjoyed it. Speaking of romances that copped a lot of hate, but I really enjoyed, we have The Striker by Anna Huang. Now, let me just say, I don't usually love Anna, so I kind of went into this one with very different expectations, but it was really fun. I do think it could have been 100 or 200 pages shorter, but this is a soccer romance. Our main protagonist plays in the Premier League, and I just really liked that. I'm just a sucker for like sports romance, especially when they're professional sports players. There was also a reputation of chronic pain in this, which I really, really appreciated. I think that needs to be in so many more romance books. You know, it really just gives representation to, like, I deal with chronic pain. I love when it's represented in books and it's not their main personality trait, but it is something they have to deal with on a daily basis, and it gives them a little bit more depth. Yeah, I really appreciated that. I gave this a 4 stars. Really fun read. As I said, could have been a little bit shorter, but on the whole, I don't really understand the hate towards it because I found it really fun and I read it very, very quickly. Next, we have 7 Sleepless Nights by Chloe Walsh. Now, I kind of had a really hard time placing this one because it's a collection of short stories from all of her universes. So from the Boys of Tommen universe, I think her other universe is called the Carter Kids or something like that. A lot of little novellas in one book, if that makes sense. And I just read the Boys of Tommen chapters. I read this after I read Releasing 10, so it definitely hit harder because of that. And the reason I rated it a 4 stars like that high is just because I love those characters. I love those characters, and if you need more of those characters, I feel like not a lot of people know that this book exists, that this little novella exists. So if you need a few more chapters from them, go download it, go read it. Next, I feel like this is surprisingly low. It's just my opinion, and that's okay. We have Onyx Storm at number 31. I am not the biggest Fourth Wing fan. I think they're really fun books, and I think they're great introductory fantasy books. I love the dragon setting. I love the academy. 2 of my favorite things in fantasy books. I just don't connect to it as much as a lot of people do, and I wish I did. I really, really wish I did, but I don't. I didn't love Iron Flame, so I was really nervous about going into this one. But to be honest, I enjoyed this more than Iron Flame. I gave this a 4 stars as well. Still not the biggest Violet Zayden fan. I don't know why. I love the dragons though. The dragons have the best personality, hands down. They're the best characters, if you can count them as characters in the entire series, in my opinion. If I continue this series, it will be for the dragons. The next fantasy book I read was, or just the next book in this list, was The Book of Azrael by Amber V. Nicole. This has been on my TikTok For You page for years now, and I have been so nervous to go into it because technically this is a dark fantasy romance series, and I don't usually go into that genre. I usually stick to my just fantasy romances, or just my fantasies, or just my romances. I don't usually go into anything kind of dark. It's just not my kind of cup of tea. I actually enjoyed this one. It is kind of a vampire romance. I say kind of because they're more monster vampires than vampires. I was very much addicted to it. I couldn't put it down. I loved our characters. I liked the whole forced proximity situation, and I do really want to continue the series. However, I am quite scared because every time I talk about it and I'm like, it wasn't that dark. Lots of people in my comments are like, yeah, the first book isn't that dark, but the next books in the series are seriously dark. And I was like, damn. Okay, that makes me a little bit more intimidated to go on to the rest of the series. But I would look up trigger warnings before you go in. It's not too dark, but I just think it's worth it, to be honest. We have now entered the 20s. Number 29 is Save Me. I received an early copy of this book. If you don't know what this book is about, basically, it is the book series to Maxton Hall, the TV series that came out last year. And obviously that TV series is in German because the books were originally written in German and they are just getting translated into English. I was so excited about that. I loved Maxton Hall. One of the best book to TV show adaptations I've seen. It was almost chapter by chapter in how accurate it was. However, I do think there was more chemistry on the screen than there was in the book. Look, to be honest, I probably could have rated this lower. It could have been like a 3.5. I rated it 4 stars because of the chemistry in my head. Just pictured the actors in my head and their great chemistry, and I kind of just put that onto the pages. So if I had read this book before, it probably wouldn't have been like amazing. I'd just be like, yeah, okay, kind of fun high school romance. But I do highly recommend the TV series if you need something to binge because it is so much fun. Next is A Harvest of Hearts by Andre Ames. And I would say the best way to describe this book is Howl's Moving Castle meets A Mortal Dark. This was so atmospheric and so much fun. This was a 4.25 for me. I really enjoyed my time reading this. If you like cozy fantasy, but there's a little bit more going on, we have a talking cat. That's so much fun. I would read it in the fall time or the winter, whatever season you're in, because it is so cozy, and to just curl up with a cup of tea and read this was the best feeling. I feel like I don't have too much to say on this book other than the fact that it was really fun to read. Number 27 is Blue Sisters by Coco Malors. I originally rated this a little bit. I originally rated it at a 4.5, but just after finishing it and thinking about it properly, I did knock it down a little bit. There were just a few things that I didn't love about it, just some of the character portrayals. But as a whole, I really enjoyed this one. This was my first book by Coco Malors, and I definitely want to read more by her because this was beautiful. We are following 3 sisters who are grieving the loss of their 4th sister, and they all return to New York to help clean out her old apartment. It is very much a little life, but in a very condensed format, obviously, and it just deals with some really sensitive topics. So I would highly recommend looking up trigger warnings before you go into this because, yeah, we've got some really sensitive topics being talked about. I feel like there's a character for everyone to relate to in this as well, and that can be like good and bad because it's kind of hard to read about such really intimidating things. I hope that makes sense. I hope I'm making sense here. I also really loved the writing style of this. Okay, at number 26, we have The Hunger Games Mockingjay. This was a reread for me, so again, I kind of didn't know where to put it because if I had read this for the first time, it would have been much higher, but because it's a reread, it's just a little bit lower for me. Out of the original trilogy, it's my least favorite. I'm not really going to talk about these too much because obviously they're rereads. Everyone knows what The Hunger Games is about. And then at number 25, we put The Hunger Games. Catching Fire was higher because I'm just obsessed with that book. Hunger Games goes at 25 just because they're such good books. I love them both. At number 24, we have The Night Circus. Now, this one again has been on my TBR for years at this point, and it's embarrassing that it took me this long to get to it. Thanks to Jamie for actually pushing me to read this. This was so cozy and sweet, and I love this author's work. I've read The Starless Sea by her as well, and I highly recommend that. Her characters are just really unique. They all have such strong personalities. The Night Circus is about a traveling circus that appears in different countries any time of the year. Within this circus, there are different acts, and we're kind of following different people within the circus as well as we've got a lot of characters we're following. To be honest, it took me a while to get a hold of like how this was written because I feel like it was written in a very peculiar way, but I did like it by the end of it. I was really enjoying the writing style by the end of it. It just took me a little bit to get my head around it all. It was a 4.25 for me, but I would highly recommend it. I do think there is the possibility that you might absolutely love it. I know lots of people, it's like a 6-star read for them. So I do think it's definitely worth your time. We had to take a break and have a tea because my voice was literally going on me, and hopefully it's gonna keep going until the end of this video at least. We are up to number 23. Number 23 is The Rebel Witch. I recently read this and it was so much fun. I read The Crimson Moth a good year ago, and for some reason, I think when this book came out, when The Rebel Witch came out, there were just so many releases around that time. I honestly just didn't know which one to read first. This was so much fun. I think it just completed the duology really well. I gave this a 4.25 as well. I didn't have many complaints. It was very quick moving. It was really easy to follow. It was really addictive. A very, very easy read. Reading this duology back to back would be so good. So if you haven't read this series yet, I would highly recommend, because it is just such a fun series to read. It is an enemies to lovers, fantasy romance, witch and witch hunter. Really, really fun dynamic. I literally love both of the characters. The next book, again, one that I knocked off my TBR that has been on my TBR for years, and it's embarrassing, is The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. I have read quite a few Olivia Blake books and absolutely love her writing. I think she has this way of writing that is so lyrical and poetic, yet addictive. And that's a really, really fine line. And I thought this was really good. I was very nervous going into this one because I feel like this series as a whole, lots of people love it, but then they just keep not loving the rest of the series. So I'm very nervous to continue it, but I'm glad I at least started it. The Atlas 6, we are following obviously 6 different people, and they are all fighting for a position or a place in the Alexandrian society. They all have different kind of magical abilities. It's really fun. I really liked the character dynamics. I actually loved so many of our characters. It was actually a lot easier of a read than I thought it was going to be, honestly. I thought this was going to be so much harder. So I gave this a 4.25. I'm really nervous to continue the rest of the series, but I'm nervous. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you think it's worth continuing, because I have seen very, very different opinions. And I feel like by this point, you guys know my taste in books pretty well. You guys know how big of a fan I am of Lynette Noni. And so next is Wandering Wild. This comes in place 21. I love Lynette Noni, and this is her first contemporary YA fiction. It's like an adventure romance, which is really fun. The Lost in the Wilderness vibes. I really enjoyed it. I think it's a really good YA book. Like, highly, highly recommend if you're in your teenage years still. I think it would be really, really fun read. Not too much to say on this one. 4.25 as well. Really enjoyed it, but it is a very YA feeling novel. So please go in knowing that. Okay, number 20. We're in the top 20 now. Officially way over halfway. We have The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. Now, this is actually part of the Remnant Chronicles. It's the first book in the Remnant Chronicles, which is connected to the Dance of Thieves duology, which is one of my favorite duologies. I had no idea that you were meant to read, or it's suggested that you read the Remnant Chronicles before you go into Dance of Thieves because they are set in the same world. But I am so glad I finally read this series, and I cannot wait to continue this series because this book was so much fun. I think from here upwards, let me have a little look, but I think they're all pretty much 4.25 or 4.5. I kind of had a hard time ranking some of these. Some of these could be interchangeable. This is all the area where I just highly recommend these. They weren't quite 5-star reads, but they were really fun reads. So yeah, this is kind of all just highly recommend this area. This is really fun because we are following Princess Leia. She's about to marry a prince she has never met, and she decides that she doesn't want this life for herself. She wants to live a different life. She doesn't want the life as a princess. So she runs away to a distant village, and when she starts working there, 2 handsome strangers arrive. One of them is the prince that she was meant to marry, and the other one is an assassin sent to kill her. Like, it's so much fun. It's such a fun plot. I really, really enjoyed this. Cannot wait to continue the series. It keeps going in like the direction that it's going. It has the potential to be one of my new favorite trilogies. So I'm very excited to continue that. I didn't really expect this next book to be as highly up on this list as it is, but honestly, I really liked it. And that is Play Along by Liz Tomford. This is the 4th book in the Windy City series. The Windy City series, I actually really enjoy. I think it's a really fun series. We are basically following millionaire sports players, and this is like marriage of convenience, fake marriage, fake dating vibes, which I love. And it's like he's obsessed with her. And the way, like, Isaiah Rhodes, one of my favorite characters in the Windy City series, this was up there with The Right Move for me. The Right Move was previously my favorite book in the series. I can't wait. I'm kind of scared to continue this series and finish it. I do think Mile High, the first book in the series, puts some people off because it wasn't my favorite, but I thought it was fine. But it does put some people off. But just the next books get so good. I highly, highly recommend to keep going because, like, yeah, the next books are some of my favorite, and this is definitely one of my favorite couples I've read about in this series so far. Number 18 was Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. This is probably one of my favorite thrillers I have ever read. This has had so much hype. Again, it's been on my kind of radar for a long time now, and I've been pretty nervous to read it, but I am so glad I finally read it. I guessed not one single thing that happened in this book. This book blew my mind in the best way possible. This is what made me love Alice Feeney. I was like, yep, you're my new go-to thriller author, because that book was so good. So unlike anything I've ever read before. Basically, we are following a couple whose kind of marriage is a little bit on the rocks at the moment, and the wife wins this retreat in, I think it's like a done-up church or something that's now an Airbnb. She wins a holiday there, and they're like, okay, let's go on this trip. It might help save our marriage. And obviously, you're taking a holiday in an old church. Like, things are going to start happening. Weird things are going to start happening, and that's exactly what happens. And I was obsessed with this. I was so hooked from page one. Cannot recommend enough. One of my favorite thrillers, as I said, I've read. I'm kind of grabbing books off my shelf as I go, by the way. So if you see it moving, that's why. But the number, what are we up to? Number 17 is The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. I started and finished this trilogy this year and I absolutely loved it. I'm just a really big Lynette Noni fan. I can't help it. This is a YA dystopian series and we are following Kiva, who has been a prison healer. Basically, any rebels are put in this prison for the past few years, and the only reason she has managed to kind of stay there and stay alive is because she keeps getting letters from her family being like, hang in there, we're coming. That's all I'm going to say because I went in with that little information and I just thought it really just blew my mind. This series in particular has really great character development. The plot twists are really great. Honestly, like once you finish this book, you have to continue this series. Like you can't stop at number one. It makes you want to continue the rest of the series, and that's exactly how I felt. So this one was I think I gave it a 4.25. I don't know. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle of the ratings. It feels higher because I love the series as a whole. Speaking of books I really didn't expect to enjoy as much as I did, we have All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. I have read one of Mariana Zapata's books before and I really enjoyed it. And this one, because it's so thick, it was kind of just intimidating to me for a long time. Oh my God, this is your sign to have it not intimidate you, because this is one of the best small town romance, single dad romances I have ever read. I loved our characters so much. I could not get enough of them. Basically, we're following Aurora, who has moved back to her hometown after a very messy divorce. I feel like that's a common theme in romances, but like, I don't even care. She checks into an Airbnb and doesn't realize that the son of the dad's property has rented this out as an Airbnb without the dad knowing. So immediately starts just a bit of a hassle, but I kind of explain how good this is. The chemistry is so good. It is such a slow burn. Mariana Zapata does slow burns so good, and I am obsessed with slow burns. As I said, I don't like immediate spice. So if you're like me and you like the slow burns and you like the chemistry and the tension, this is amazing for that. I gave this a 4.5. A 4.5 for a slow burn romance is crazy. Okay, at number 15, we're up top 15 now. We have The Gilded Cage by Lynette Noni. This is the second book in the Prison Healer series. I just absolutely love this, absolutely ate it up. Again, so many moments that my jaw was on the floor during this book. I am just obsessed with Lynette Noni's writing and the way she creates characters. Couldn't recommend the series enough, and this one really just cements your love for the series. I won't talk about it too much because it is a second book in a series, but I gave this a 4.5. Obsessed with this series. Highly recommend it. I think it deserves more hype than what it gets. Going through these two kind of a bit quickly because honestly, I don't have much to say about them and I feel like I talk about them a lot. Catching Fire is the 14th book on this list. I know I probably shouldn't have put it this high because it is a reread, but I am obsessed with The Hunger Games and I loved this, and I just felt like rereading it after reading Sunrise on the Reaping was just a whole new experience. It felt like I was reading it for the first time again, honestly. So if you've been wanting to do a reread after reading Sunrise on the Reaping, I highly recommend, and I think it's totally worth it. I really enjoyed it and it was too emotional. I cried a lot more than I did the first time reading this. Okay, I kind of wasn't sure where to put this book, but I ended up thinking about it and I was like, this book was actually really good. To be honest, it probably is kind of interchangeable, as I said, probably like with The Gilded Cage, but The Rose Bargain by Sasha Payton Smith. This is just a really fun fantasy romance read. This feels like Bridgerton meets Shadowhunters meets the Selection series. We are set in the 1800s. We are following our main protagonist who is beginning her season to look for a husband, except this season is a little bit different because the prince is on the market. In this world as well, every time a season begins, the girl competing can go to the queen and ask for a bargain. The bargain might be like the perfect smile for her fingernails, a beautiful singing voice for like never being able to feel temperature again, or something like that. Like they bargain for better qualities over qualities that they have, if that makes sense. Really fascinating concept. I will say, I was like, oh, this is like a 4-star read. This is like good. It's really easy. It's fun. And then the ending absolutely blew me away. And now I need the next book in the series immediately. Like, are you kidding? How is that the ending? That wasn't fair. But I highly recommend this book if you need just a really fun, quick fantasy read. If you're a Bridgerton fan, like it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. At number 12, we have A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. Again, one that I didn't think was going to be this high. I gave it a 4.5. I really enjoyed it. I think I am just a massive Rebecca Ross fan, to be honest. I cannot wait to continue this duology. It was absolutely wonderful. I think it's called the Elements of Cadence series or duology. Basically in this, we are following Jack, who has returned to his home island where his family lives because he has been summoned. And when he gets there, he realizes that there are young girls who have gone missing on this island. And so that kind of makes him more compelled to stay longer than he thought. Now, I am very picky with my cozy fantasies, but Rebecca Ross has a way of writing and developing cozy fantasies that is so lyrical and beautiful and mystical, yet addictive. I could not put this down. I was so entranced this entire time. Everything about this, the characters, the atmosphere, the world, the magic system was so beautiful. It felt like a dream. dream. It felt like you were getting lost in a childhood dream in the best way possible. I truly think this is also appropriate for like every age. Like I think you could enjoy it if you're really young, but I also think you will enjoy it just as much like if you're older. Like it is so diverse and approachable, and I just was so obsessed with this and cannot wait to complete this duology. It's very high up on my TBR. Number 11 is An Ember in the Ashes. Spoiler alert, I am currently reading the second book in this series and loving it just as much. We haven't quite reached 5-star territory. This is still a 4.5 for me, but I love this so much more than I thought I was going to. It just felt so refreshingly unique. I was so excited to have a fantasy book that felt like something different, something I hadn't read before, because so often these days I read fantasy books, especially fantasy romance books, and they feel very similar to each other. Not saying that I don't enjoy them, I do, but I do really appreciate when a fantasy book can give me a refreshing, unique kind of feel, especially in sense of characters and the world that we're set in. We are following Leia, I think that's how you pronounce it, who goes undercover into the castle as the commandant's slave. The commandant is this very, very evil woman. She does this so that she can try and save her brother, who is part of the rebellion, from being executed. That whole undercover thing always just gets me. Honestly, it'll always get me. And this was absolutely no exception. I know this was really popular like years and years ago, and I think it's picked up traction again because the last book just got published in this quartet. I am so excited to just continue this series. I'm hoping to finish it by the end of the year. I think I will, because it's just so addictive. So I feel like I'll be finishing it by the end of the year. And next, we are talking about Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. Again, I feel like this was another one that a lot of people really, really didn't like and were quite disappointed by, but I really liked it. I gave it a 4.75 in the end. The ending, I was just hoping for a little bit more in how it ended, and that was the only reason it wasn't a 5 stars for me. Main reason I rated this so highly was because I saw myself in this main protagonist so much. That never happens to me. Literally, it never happens to me that I relate to a book. There's only one other book that I've related to so much, and it's actually in my top 10 this year as well. I often see people being like, yeah, I saw myself in the main protagonist, and I've always been jealous of that fact because I never see myself as like this morally grey, really cool kind of protagonist, because I'm just not. I wish I was, but I'm really just not. But our main protagonist, Alice, is so bubbly and optimistic, but in a way that makes people perceive her very differently. It's a very interesting thing. I really just love this story. It also is very reminiscent of Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo to me. I don't know if that was just me, but it was. And that's another one of my favorite books of all time. I love Emily Henry. I think her writing is absolutely fantastic. Definitely wasn't as romance heavy as some of her past books, but I really appreciated this. I thought it was kind of more life lesson heavy. It was almost a bit of a character study going on. And we were basically following Alice as she was interviewing Margaret, who is kind of this, just like I would say socialite, like a kind of very famous face. She went missing for a few years, and Alice has tracked her down, and she is interviewing her about her life and trying to get the permission to write a book on her life. Very interesting story, and I personally really loved it. I know a lot of people didn't, but yeah. I believe we are now entering 5-star territory because this is my first 5-star, or at least the first 5-star we're talking about in this video, and that is The Blood Trader by Lynette Noni. This is the third and final book in the Prison Healer series. I just thought this was an epic conclusion to a wonderful dystopian series. As I said, I think this series needs a lot more hype. I won't talk about this book too much because obviously I've talked about the series, but it is such an easy series to read. I am notorious for starting series and never actually finishing them. The fact that I started this and finished this year already is crazy. Take that as your sign that it is an addictive series. Each book just leads on to the next book so well, and I get addicted to it so much. I think I was just so connected to our characters by this point that it couldn't not be a 5-star read for me. So this is our first 5-star of the video. Our next 5-star for the video is The Favorites by Lynn Fargo. Oh my god, this book, oh my god. This was pitched to me as Magnolia Parks meets Taylor Jenkins Reid. Literally the perfect way to describe this in my opinion. We are following 2 ice skaters in a kind of interview style format, but then we have flashbacks through the main protagonist's point of view. Very interesting layout of the book, but I found it fascinating. Could not put this book down. The toxicity, the drama made me want to throw this book across the room, and yet I could not stop reading it. Those kind of books are my favorite kind of books. It's very Magnolia Parks coded, but also I would say with a bit of hint of like Daisy Jones and the Six. So if you like those kind of books, highly recommend this. I think it is getting all the hype for all the right reasons. I do think it's worth looking up trigger warnings before you go in, just so you know what you're going into, because as I said, it is very toxic and we do have a lot of drama and it will make you very irritated, but at the same time, you will be obsessed with it and not be able to stop thinking about it. At least that's what happened to me. So this was ultimately a 5 stars. Again, thank you, Jamie, for this recommendation. Our characters, I love them and I hate them at the same time. Number 7 was Blood Over Bright Haven by M.L. Wang. This was my first book by this author. I know they have also written The Sword of Kagan, and I really want to read that book as well after reading this because this was outstanding. This is a fantasy standalone. I don't usually read standalones, but oh my god, if you're looking for a standalone, literally look no further. This is the definition of female rage, in my opinion. The politics were insane. The world building was insane. I don't even know how to describe this book. I guess in a way, we are following our main protagonist who is taking an entrance exam to be one of the scholars who kind of overlooks and helps rule the city. I feel like I'm doing a terrible job of explaining it. Just read it. Just trust me and just read it. There is little to no romance in this, but it truly doesn't need it. I was addicted every single page and it left me staring at the wall for 20 to 30 minutes after finishing it because I was like, what on earth have I just read? Speaking of books I could not recommend enough, The Conditions of Will takes place what are we up to? Number 6. Jessa Hastings is one of my favorite authors I have ever read. I love the Magnolia Park series with everything inside me. That series is a Roman Empire series for me. When I heard that she was coming out with a new book, I was very intrigued because this is like, it's a different book for her. We are following Georgia, who has been living in London for a long time and kind of doesn't talk to her family who lives in South Carolina when she suddenly gets a text that her dad has passed away and she has to go back to South Carolina to see her family and be there for her dad's funeral and will reading. The family dynamics in this is what I connected to the most. This was the other book I was talking about that I connected to on a very deep level and I didn't expect to. I saw myself in so many of these characters. I saw my family in so many of these characters. It really just connected to me on a different level and I wasn't really expecting that. It was just a bit of an emotional roller coaster, honestly. I would look up trigger warnings before you go into this just because there are some really sensitive topics that are covered in it, but I would highly, highly recommend it. It's just it's like a character study almost. I feel like we just get to go on this journey with our characters and see different ways that different people grieve. A 5-star read for me, absolutely incredible. This has stuck with me since I read it. Cannot stop thinking about it. Okay, number 5. Now look, I thought a lot about this one and what I was going to put in this place. And honestly, I've just stayed true to my reading experience with this book. And I know that lots of people have had very different experiences to me. I don't think anyone will have the same experience reading this book because it is a very traumatic book, but this is a 6-star series for me. This is a Roman Empire series. And that of course is Releasing 10 by Chloe Walsh. Was this book perfect? No. Was this book absolutely traumatizing? Yes. And it was incredibly intense and I would not recommend it. I would say look up trigger warnings before you go in. Please go in and look after yourself because there are some incredibly heavy topics covered in this book and it is not something you want to read lightly. But in saying that, these characters mean so much to me. It felt wrong not putting it in my top 5. Honestly, it felt really wrong. I love these characters to bits. Majority of this book, I was just bawling my eyes out, but ultimately I couldn't put it down. I love our characters. I love Huey. I love Liz. If you didn't know, this is the newest addition to the Boys of Tommen series, which is, as I said, my Roman Empire series. I love these characters to bits. Originally, this next book wasn't rated as high as it is, but honestly, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since I read it, and I had the funnest time reading it, and that is Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. This looks slightly different because it's an ARC version, but I could not stop thinking about this book. I loved it. Rachel Gillig is an incredible author. I would say gothic fantasy. Our magic system is set around the world of divination, so the study of dreams. It's so much fun. It's so unique. It just felt so refreshing. It was such a refreshing fantasy read, and as I said, I crave that in my fantasy reads. I couldn't recommend this enough. Like, I seriously cannot recommend this book enough. This has the possibility that it could be higher rated than The Shepherd King duology by Rachel Gillig, and that's saying a lot. This is going to be a duology. I don't even know what to say about it. I just was obsessed with it. I think her writing is fantastic. I think the world was really incredible, and I cannot wait to continue this duology when it finally comes out. It's literally only just released, but I highly recommend it. This next book, I didn't really expect to be rating this high either, and that is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This takes top 3 places because this book emotionally destroyed me in the best way possible. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid. She is one of my favorite authors of all time, a Roman Empire author, if you will. Whatever she writes, I will be reading. This is talking about a NASA astronaut. It's bizarre. She is training to go up in a space shuttle, but the dynamics explored in this, the friendships explored in it, the relationships, the idea of love. Like, oh my God, this book absolutely destroyed me. I would recommend this book to anyone. Anyone, no matter what you read, I would recommend this book. It's one of those books where I just feel like you can't go wrong. I haven't seen one person not like this book so far. In saying that, I haven't seen a lot of reviews because it still is very, very new. It is just one of those books that absolutely leaves you mind boggled and staring at the wall whole and just wanting to immediately reread it because it is that good. It is up there with Seven Husbands and Daisy Jones for me, which are two of my favorite Taylor Jenkins Reid books. And honestly, this could be my favorite. It may be, because I haven't read them in ages and I need to reread the other two, but this has the potential to be my favorite by her. There's a pretty common theme going on here with top books, and that is books that emotionally destroyed me, and this one is no exception. The second best book I read this year was, or have read this year so far, is Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson. This is the third book in the Mistborn trilogy, the original Mistborn trilogy, and this book was insane. This book literally just blew me away. I didn't think we could get any better than the first two. Every single book in this series has been a 5 stars for me. If that's not telling you something, I don't know what is. I feel like the Mistborn series as a whole, obviously I can't talk about this one specifically because it's the third book, but the Mistborn series as a whole is a great introduction to high fantasy, I think. It's technically YA, but we deal with a lot of politics, a really intricate magic system. We just have so much fun, honestly. If you don't know the Mistborn series, we are following Vin and a kind of group of rebels who are trying to take over the Lord Ruler, who is essentially the bad guy. We're set in a world where the bad guy has already won. They're trying to take back the world. I love this magic system. It is a great entry point to Brandon Sanderson, and this book absolutely blew me away. And I was, again, crying a lot. The final book, can you believe I don't actually have physically yet? But that is, and I feel like this isn't really a surprise, but anyway, Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This is Haymitch's story in the Hunger Games. If you didn't know, I feel like everyone knows, but this has just been my top read this year. I haven't stopped thinking about it. The Hunger Games holds such a special place in my heart. It is so near and dear to my heart. Kind of felt wrong not having this as my top read of the year so far. As you can see, we've had some insanely good reads, but this just, I think for sentimental reasons, just takes the crown. I can't not put it in first place. Everything about this book was perfection. I had very high expectations and every single one of those expectations were met. Haven't cried more in a book in years, literally. Like, I was literally bawling my eyes out, and I feel like that's a universal experience. I feel like that's a very shared experience when reading this book. That takes top 1 place because it was truly the best book I have read this year so far, and it will take a lot to top that. A lot. But after all that, oh my gosh, I feel like my voice is almost gone. But those are the 50 books I have read so far this year, ranked worst from best. If you have watched to the end of this video, you do not know how much I love you. Thank you so much for doing that. It truly means the world to me. You are such an amazing person. Thank you for being here. I hope you're all having the best reading month, and I hope your year has been going well and treating you well so far. I love you all so much, and I will see you in my next video.